Today we got one target. It's 1i. Convert between fractions, mixed numbers, and decimals, and vice versa. We want to be able to do this so that we can fluently move between the different types of numbers. The first thing we're going to look at is changing decimals to either a fraction or a mixed number. When doing this, we need to ask ourselves if the value is going to be greater or less than 1. This is going to make a big deal in helping us determine, is it going to be written as a fraction or is it going to be written as a mixed number. If it is less than the 1, it's going to be a fraction. If it's greater than 1, we're going to write it as a mixed number. So I'm going to quickly go through and just look and help myself determine, is it going to be a fraction or a mixed number? So I'm going to go through and I'm going to circle. This first one is less than 1 whole, so I'm going to circle it red because I know I'm going to need that as a fraction. Number 2 is 75 hundredths. I'm going to circle that one red because it's less than 1. Number 3 is 1 and 2 hundredths. Because it's 1 or greater, I know it's going to be a mixed number, so I circled that one blue. The next one is less than, the next one is greater, and the last one is going to be greater than. So I can see that I have 3 of these that I'm going to write as fractions and 3 of them that I'm going to write as mixed numbers. As I look at number 1, I want to go through, and the easiest approach to this is write it as a fraction the way I would read it properly. Decimal 66 would be read 66 hundredths. So I'm going to write it as 66 hundredths. Now I could go through and I know I want to write this in simplest form. Quickly I can see through my divisibility rules that I have even numbers that end each of these. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to divide each of these by 2. 66 divided by 2 is 33. 100 divided by 2 is 50. When I start to think about what numbers will divide into 33, all I can come up with is 1, 33, 3, and 11. And I know 1 is the only number that's going to go into 50, so this is my final answer. Again, simplest form. Once I get it to that point, whatever point that is, that's where I stop. With number 2, again, I could follow that same idea. 75 hundredths. Well, this one I may not even need to simplify. I might recognize that because I know that that's also money, or the decimal 75 can be referred to as 3/4. And even saying that, I know that it's going to simplify down to 3/4. Now, I could prove it showing that. How did I get there? Well, I divided 75 by 25, got 3. 100 divided by 25 is going to be 4, and I have my 3/4. With number 3, 1 and 2 hundredths. Now, I know it's going to be over 1, so I know my final answer is going to be a mixed number. I know I'm going to have the 1 and some type of fraction over here. So I'm not even going to worry about the 1 right now. I'm going to focus on that 2 hundredths. And again, how I read it is just how I could write it. That's going to help me get the problem solved a little bit quicker if I just follow this process. I can divide each of these by 2, and I get 1/50. So 1 and 1/50 is my final answer here. On number 4, 88 hundredths. Again, 88 over 100. Solving this one, I could look and I could see, well, I know 8 would go into 88 easily, but 8 does not go into 100 evenly. I could do 2. I could also do 4. I'm going to try that one out to start with. 88 divided by 4 is 22. 100 divided by 4 is 25. Because I know 25 only has 1, 5, and 25 as its factors, this is my final answer. On number 5, we once again see that we have a number greater than 1. So I'm going to do the same process. I'm going to come down here. I know I'm going to have a whole value of 4, so I can take that 4 out, and then I look at just that decimal value, that part of a whole, and it's 6/10. Well, 6/10 is one of those fractions that I can easily simplify by 2, and I end up with 3/5. We might also remember that this decimal 6 is one of the expected fraction decimals percents that we know. These are the common ones. So 6/10, I would hope that we could understand is either 6/10. We could write it as 3/5. These are all varieties of what we've done earlier in the week. The last one we're going to look at here one more time is greater than 1, so it's going to be a mixed number. Now, this one, 35 hundredths, because we've already taken care of that whole value of 2. I can look at, it ends in a 5 with a 35, a 0 with a 100. So I know from my divisibility rules that each of these is divisible by 5. 35 divided by 5 is 7. 100 divided by 5 is 20. 7 is a prime number. Again, that prime number means that it's only divisible by 1 and itself. And because of that, I look, 7 does not go into 20 evenly. So therefore, I have my final answer of 2 7/20. With this section, we're going to be looking at the fractions and mixed numbers, now converting those over to decimals. As we look through these, we're going to talk about a couple strategies that will come in handy as we're doing these different problems. So if we kind of zoom in here and look over at number 1, 9/10. The easiest thing that I can tell you is if you can find where this denominator is a 10, 100, 1,000, and so on, those base 10 values are going to be the ones that's how we read it. We have our tenths, hundredths, thousands. So if I can put them in that's the route that I'm going to go, because that's going to be the easiest transition from a fraction or mixed number to a decimal. So I look at this, I read this one as 9/10. Well, I know I have my decimal. That first number after the decimal is my tenths place value. So I would read this as 9/10. Once I see this mixed number, again, I know that this value right here is a whole number. I don't have to worry about that number being changed anyway. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to write my 3 and my decimal, because I know that that whole number goes to the left of the decimal. And I look at what is left, 1/8. Well, this is one of those common ones that we talked about earlier in the week as well. So hopefully I know that 1/8 is equivalent to 125 thousandths. 125 thousandths. I might forget, and I could say, well, I know 2/8 is equal to 1/4. 1/4 is 25 hundredths. So if I think, well, if 2/8 is 25 hundredths, what is half of that? And the half of that is our 125 thousandths. Here we have 2/3. Again, this is one of those common fractions that we want to know. The 1/3, the 2/3. But if I didn't know this one, or I got to one that's not so easy, I can't easily multiply 3 to make a 10. I can't multiply it to make 100. So now I have to kind of think about, well, what else do I know that I could do? Every fraction is a division problem. So if I needed to, I could always say 2 divided by 3. When I do this, 3 won't go into 2, so I add my decimal and a 0, bring my decimal directly above. That's going to go straight up into that final solution. 3 goes into 20, 6 times. 3 times 6 is 18. I'm going to subtract, and look at what happens. I end up with a 2. I add a 0, I bring it down, and again, 3 into 20, well, I've already solved that, is 6. Let me try it. 18. I subtract, I get 2. This process is going to repeat. If I end up with a decimal that just repeats, I use the repeating bar notation. So here, I'm going to put this bar over the numbers that repeat. So you might see it written as 6/10 repeating, 66/100 repeating. What this is saying is whatever values are under this bar, that is what repeats. Either way would be acceptable. I might even go to that third number, and that gets back into that idea of when we change a decimal to a percent. Remember, we multiply that decimal by 100, which in turn moves my decimal place or point 2 places over. So this way I still have that correct percent of a 66.6%. That way that it's a rounded version of that value. So in this case, I might go to the third value, to your thousands place value. That way if you were converting back to a percent, you'd be prepared and have that number ready. In this one, again, that 35, I'm not going to easily be able to make to a 10 or 100. So I might want to go through and just see, well, can I simplify this at all? And I look, well, 21's divisible by 3. 35, not divisible by 3. So let me look again. The next thing, 21's divisible by 7. 35 is also divisible by 7. And I could simplify this down to 3/5. 21 divided by 7 is 3. 35 divided by 7 is 5. And now I have two options. Either I notice that 3/5 is one of those common fractions that we can translate, or if I multiplied 5 by 2, I would get 10, so I multiply my 3 by 2, I get 6, and then I have my 6/10. Remember, these two are read the exact same. It's just how we write them is the only difference. So 6/10 would be my final answer for number 5. With this last one, 155/200. One of the first things we might want to do is, I see that that's 200. I could easily divide that by 2 to get 100. Divide this, it's not going to be even. So to eliminate some of that, one of the things that we can do is think about, well, if it doesn't divide easily down, can I go the opposite way and go up? I know I can bring it down to 100, but can I get it to 1,000? And sure enough, we can multiply 200 by 5. That's going to be 1,000. 155 times 5. And again, I could use my mental math. I could come over to the side and I could do out my work. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 5 again, 25 plus a 2 is 27. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 2 is 7. So I end up with 775 1,000ths. And just as I read that, 775 thousandths. I have my tenths, my hundredths, my thousandths place value. The last thing you're going to do is complete some practice problems with this. You can go through and just try. The first section is converting the fraction and mixed number to the decimal. The second section is that decimal to either a fraction or a mixed number. Think about the process that we went through. You have the video. You can always go back and look at any part of it again. If you have questions, again, email me. I will try to respond to you as well as I can while I'm out this week. And if we need to, we can follow up with some of this information come next week.